Last week, I had a conversation with someone who was a little bit worried about the state of the church. After our conversation, he felt a lot better, and I thought I would share with you today some of what I shared with him, which is not only should we not be worried about the church, but we should be filled with hope. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Twestermeyer. Thanks for spending a little time to be with me today. This episode is airing on Saturday, June 5th. That means tomorrow is Sunday, June 6th. And that means tomorrow is also only the second Sunday we've had at St. Philip the Deacon where we're able to worship without any restrictions, without masks, without social distancing, no restrictions whatsoever. Last Sunday, May 30th, was the first Sunday that we did that. That, of course, was a holiday weekend, and we did have a lot of people here. And I saw some people who I've not seen for, probably 14 months, honestly. And one couple I met with after worship, had a nice chat with them, but they were a little distraught that there weren't more people here. They sort of thought, we're back to normal. No restrictions. There should be people from wall to wall packing the sanctuary. So we had a nice chat, and they felt a lot better, actually, after that conversation about things. And it struck me that to the degree other people are having similar feelings as that couple, I would share some of the points that I shared with them. One of which, of course, is that it was Memorial Day weekend. That's never a record-breaking weekend for attendance at church, just a little inside baseball. So that's important to note. And that's the start of summer. And I will tell you, in Minnesota, I grew up outside of Chicago. In Minnesota, the summer months also not record breakers for church attendance. In Chicago, where I grew up, this whole going to the cabin thing, leaving for the weekend, wasn't really a thing, at least not in my neighborhood. Here in Minnesota, of course, it happens all the time, which means that people aren't around over the weekend to do, among other things like go to church. And that doesn't even take into account the fact that we are now just coming out in the very early stages, coming out of the pandemic, which, as I've said in other places, doesn't mean we are back to normal. I'll say a thing about that in a second, but to the degree this couple was worried about, let's call it the state of the church, I lifted up 3 data points from 2020, which was the pandemic, which are important to note, and I'm going to repeat them here. First of all, during 2020, we had about twice as many people worship with us at St. Philip the Deacon as we did in 2019. Now, that was all virtual, I grant you, but still, that's a big incremental difference. So twice as many people worshiped with us in 2020. That's the first data point. Second data point, giving during 2020 was up over 2019. That's a good thing. People were supporting the work of the church, supporting, expanding the kingdom of God, sharing the message of the gospel. That's a good thing. The third point is that all of our expenses were down, save one, as a church I'm talking about. And the one that was up, and was up significantly, 33%, was our support as a congregation to people in need. We not only gave more in 2020 than we did in 2019, but we gave it earlier in the year, recognizing that a lot of people were hurting and in need, and we were in a position, thanks to your generosity, to support them, which we did. So again, attendance was up, giving was up, and our support to people in need as a congregation was also up. All of those are wonderful signs of health and reasons to celebrate. And I will tell you that 2021, we're in the early days of June, so we're not quite halfway through the year, but all of the trends are equally good this year. We're in a really good place. And so to the degree that people are coming back to church now a little bit and saying, why isn't it packed? It must be terrible. The news must be awful. We must be declining. The ship is sinking. I just want to assure people that's not the case. Again, we're not back to normal. It's the summer. And I think it's going to be not just weeks, but maybe months, and maybe a whole lot of months before we sort of have a sense of what the new normal even means. I think there's no question there's going to be a spectrum of folks who are figuring out how they want to engage church in terms of, do they want to be back in person, or do they like the online option? Some people absolutely, clearly, I mean, I've had conversations with people, really want to be back in person, which is great, and I celebrate that. There are other people who say, Tim, honestly, I kind of like staying at home in my feety pajamas and my cup of coffee to worship. And I think we'll have those two ends of the spectrum, and we'll have a whole lot of people in the middle for whom now online virtual live streaming has been, I'll use the word, normalized. And so some weeks they'll be here, some weeks maybe they won't. Maybe they'll stay at home, maybe they'll be at the cabin. We had one couple share with us last week that they were at a campfire, camping, and they watched worship on their phone. And they got back to us and said, it was great. We've never done that before, and it was so exciting. So again, people are going to be worshiping in lots of ways, and that's a good thing. And again, I think we'll see how things develop in the next few months. But I would encourage all of us to sort of have a sense of perspective, to recognize we're coming out of an incredibly disruptive time, and we're not out of it yet, and we're not sort of back to a place of stability, and that's okay. So let's have some patience with one another, let's have some grace with one another, and let's trust that this is not our church, it's God's church. And for what it's worth, I think God has incredible dreams and incredible plans for this church. The challenge for us is simply to be faithful enough to say, God, I'm willing to follow where you are leading. So whether you're joining us in person these days or whether you're joining us virtually, whether you've been here at St. Philip a long time or you're brand new to us, whether you're old or young, I am thrilled that you're along for the ride. And I pray in the next few weeks and months and maybe even years, we may all follow faithfully where God is leading us to a bright and hope-filled tomorrow. Thanks for being with me. As always, be well, stay in touch, and God bless.